Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Thanks for joining me today. I am back again with another layout for the Cut Shop. This month, the Cut Shop design team is teaming up with creative scrappers. So there are a bunch of us that are creating layouts based off of this sketch. For my layout today, I am going to be using the Happy Clouds cut file. I will also have more information towards the end of the video on a discount code to the Cut Shop and a free cut file that is available. As soon as I saw the sketch, I knew immediately what I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure what products I wanted to use. I've been going through my stash, just trying to figure out what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to get rid of. And as I was purging my stash, I came across this paper pad. It is from the American Crafts DIY shop, and it's this really pretty watercolor paper. It looks like a Polaroid frame, and then in the center it has this really cool watercolor effect. It almost reminded me of a summer sky with the different color combinations that were going on. So I wanted to add to that theme. So I grabbed a Heidi Swapp stencil that's been laying on my desk. I've used it on a previous project, and some distress ink, and I'm just sponging on some yellow ink to create some sun rays on the background. I go back and forth a couple times adding more sun rays. When I first put the stencil on there, I thought I just wanted the sun rays towards the top of the paper, but as soon as I removed the stencil, I felt like it looked a little heavy-handed just having them at the top. So I lay the stencil back down, and I'm going to add some more yellow ink towards the bottom of the page just to kind of scatter the sun rays around the page. As you can see, I have cut multiple clouds in varying sizes out of white cardstock, and I am going to be using those clouds on the left-hand side of the page. If you remember the sketch that I showed at the beginning of the video, there's a circular pattern that is on the left-hand side, and I am going to be using the clouds in place of that circular pattern. Here I'm bringing the stencil back in and deciding whether or not I want to add more sun rays towards the bottom of the page, and I am going to do that. I do like to tape down the paper and the stencil. I'm not super great at holding either of those things very steady, especially when the stencil is as large as this one is. So that just is going to secure it to the paper to make sure that there isn't any shifting as I'm applying the ink. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to start bringing in some more pattern paper. I wanted to add some pops of color to this layout, and the pink in this pattern paper matches the pink in my niece's floaties perfectly. This is from the Heidi Swapp Serendipity collection. Does anybody remember that collection? It is quite a few years old, but I really liked how the colors matched so well, and I liked that nice bright pop of color on that neutral background. If you remember the sketch, there was a horizontal and a vertical line that ran through the layout, and so I'm going to cut 2 strips of this pattern paper and position it just as you see it there and use those as my horizontal and vertical lines. I'm liking how it's starting to come together. I do add some stitching to the sun rays and also to the clouds. On the clouds, I do some hand stitching with white embroidery floss, and then I ran some yellow stitching through the sun rays. That yellow stitching was actually inspired by an embellishment that I'm going to be using coming up fairly soon. But that hand stitching, I wasn't overly happy with how it turned out. It was just a lot of texture at that top of the page, and I felt like it was too heavy. So I cut the clouds a second time, and I positioned them directly on top of the embroidery floss. I offset them slightly just to create a little bit of depth and a little bit of a shadow. It just gave a little bit more interest to the layout. I was really disappointed that I didn't like the hand stitching. If you have hand stitched on a layout, you know how much time it takes to get that stitching done. So I took all that time, and it wasn't until I had it all done that I realized that I didn't like it. But I'm really happy with how this turned out with positioning the clouds directly on top of each other. I couldn't let all of my effort go to waste, so I did leave the hand stitching visible on 2 of the clouds, the swirly clouds, all the way at the top of the page and then towards the left hand side of the page. Here I have brought in a couple more embellishments. There is that piece that I was talking about that had the yellow stitching running through it that inspired me to add the yellow stitching to the sun rays. And then I've also brought in a banner piece from the Heidi Swapp Serendipity collection. Now I'm working on the layers behind my photo. I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm just going to add a small white border around the photo and then also a layer of vellum. This photo is just so sweet. You can tell by the expression on their faces that they were just having a great time that day. I don't remember anything extra special happening other than just hanging out at my parents' house, swimming in the pool. But this photo, it just melts and breaks my heart all at the same time. My son was only 4 in this photo. He's 8 now. And I just can't get over how fast time has gone by and how little he was here. And it just seems like it was just yesterday. Can anyone out there relate with that, where your heart breaks just a little bit when you scrapbook older photos? I know it's cliche and I know people say it all the time, but time really does go by so fast after you have kids. Okay, so back to the layout. I am still working on getting my layers arranged underneath the photo. I did finally buy some fun foam, so I am going to add a little dimension to this photo and lift it off the page a little bit. I love that fun foam. It is so much easier than having to apply a million pop dots to the back of a picture. So I'm going to cut that fun foam down to size, and in just a moment you are going to see me have a fight with my fine line bottle. I was fighting with it throughout this entire layout. I did edit out a lot of it, but I have mentioned in previous videos that I have broken both of the caps that go onto the bottle. They somehow got glued shut, and when I was trying to pry them off, they broke. So every time I go to use this thing, it's clogged because I don't have a lid for it. I haven't decided if I want to make the investment in buying new caps for the bottles since I had such bad luck with the first two that I purchased, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to keep fighting with that bottle until all the adhesive's gone because I just can't bring myself to throw it away. So I'm going to continue adhering things down. I'm going to get those strips glued down onto the paper. It takes me a couple tries to get them exactly where I want them. I didn't want my title to be overlapping that pattern paper very much, so I move them around a couple different times. My title is going to be "You Are My Sunshine," and those are clear stickers that are from Little Yellow Bicycle, and they are old also. They've been sitting in my stash for a long time, but I thought it was appropriate for the layout that I was creating here to use that as my title. And I don't think I mentioned the label for that blue strip with the clouds and the sun and the yellow stitching, but I am fairly certain that is from Hampton Art. Don't quote me on it. It's been in my stash for a really long time. I tried Googling it and I couldn't find an image of it, so I could be wrong on the brand name for that product. I do bring in a doily from my stash and also a flare button from a previous kit from Hip Kit Club. The pink on that flare button and the pink in the Serendipity collection match each other really well. I could not have asked for a better match, especially since they were purchased so far apart from each other for the pinks to blend so well together. It's amazing. I love when I come across products like that in my stash that I can put together that were purchased so many years apart from each other, but they just work together so well. So I'm getting pretty close to having everything adhered down. I just need to finish getting the doily glued down and then the photo and the flare button. I don't really add a whole lot of journaling to this layout. As I mentioned, there wasn't really anything extra special that happened this day. I do come across a tiny word sticker that has everything I need to say on it, which is great. I love when that happens. Sometimes I have a hard time figuring out where I want to put my journaling, especially when there's a lot going on a layout. So it's great when I come across an embellishment like this tiny word sticker that says everything that I need to say. And the sticker says, "There is no place like home except Grandma's," which is perfect since they were at their grandparents' house swimming that day. So the layout's pretty much finished. I'm just trying to decide if I wanted to add anything extra, maybe another flare button or some small acrylic pieces, but I decided to leave it as is. I am going to add some black Heidi Swapp Color Shine, and I do splatter it onto that banner, which is unfortunate because the banner has almost a resist feel to it, so I knew that the Color Shine wouldn't dry real well on the banner, but when I try to wipe it off, it just smudges. Thankfully, I had purchased a couple packs of those banners, so I was able just to cut one apart and just lay it right on top of the pieces that were smudged, so you never even know that it happened. I swear that this happens to me more often than not, that I get color shine where I don't want it to go. I haven't quite figured out how to get my splatters to look random and to have them only fall in the places that I want them to land. Once I have those areas covered up, the layout is pretty much complete. I am going to leave you in just a moment with some still shots, but before I do that, I want to talk briefly about the promo code and the free cut file. There is a 25% discount at the Cut Shop available for the month of August. Here is the promo code, and then there is also a free cut file that is available, and this is the cut file. I will have more information on my blog, and I will link to Creative Scrappers and the Cut Shop blog in the description below, where you will be able to find the download information for the free cut file. I will be back again later this week for another layout for the Cut Shop. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.